Hey everyone, as always, thank you for joining me. I sincerely appreciate that y'all watch my videos and I appreciate the prayers and support that you have given me. Today I'm going to be talking about when my grief journey began, which is when Caleb died. And this is not an easy subject to talk about, as it would not be for anyone that has lost someone in their life. Um, but it is where that my grief journey began. So I think that it's important for me to let you all know about Caleb and um, when he passed away and how he passed away and so forth and so on. Um, as I've said before, he did pass away on March the 29th of 2008. It was a sudden death. But before I kind of go into that, I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you about the things that were going on prior to that. So, the father figure, he had moved out of my house, and we had broken up, and I was dating someone else that had moved into my house, and I was attending the local vocational school. The day prior, I went to class. It was a normal day. Came home. My boyfriend at that time, he needed to go to the doctor. So I dropped Caleb off at my mom's house, and then I took him on to the doctor to be seen. And then we went back and picked up Caleb, and we went to Walmart to, do the regular shopping or whatever. But on this particular trip, we were looking at birthday cakes for his upcoming birthday that night. So we were trying to figure out, what kind of thing we were going to have this year. We came home, ate supper. I got Caleb ready for bed, and we went to bed shortly after that. On the morning of March the 29th, my phone rang, and my brother was calling to ask if he could borrow the truck. And when he called, I realized what time it was, and I knew that Caleb was usually up before this time because I would usually hear him stirring around, and I would wake up at that time. But it was later than he would usually get up. So I went to his room to check on him, and he was laying in his bed, and he was on his back, and I knew that something was wrong, and I touched him, and he was cold, and he was kind of stiff, and I knew at that time that that the Lord had already took him home. There are a lot of things I can't remember exactly after this point because of the extreme shock. Caleb had not been sick or anything prior to this. But I just remember screaming for my boyfriend, and he came in to see what was going on, and I told him, I don't remember, I believe I was saying, he's dead, he's dead. He asked me if I had called 911, and in my state of shock, I did not think about calling 911. So I said no, and so he called 911, And I just remember standing against the wall and just literally, I just slid all the way down the wall in tears, hysterical, and saying, I will blow my brains out. I mean, why I would remember that, I don't know, but I do remember that that was my reaction at first. Um, but I do remember the ambulance coming, and there were two EMT workers, and it was a man and a woman. Um, I cannot remember what they were doing with Caleb. I can't remember all those details. I remember that they did confirm, of course, that he was gone, and I said that I needed to let the father figure know, and the female EMT said that she would call him for me, and she did that. And I remember the police coming, and some detectives, I think, and my brother, who was going to borrow the truck, he eventually showed up. But I just remember, like, all this in that time frame while the EMTs were here and we were waiting, I guess, for the others to show up. I just remember I would like sit down for like a second, and then I would just get up and I would pace, and I didn't know what to do. I was again, I guess that was how I was dealing with my state of shock. But I remember that they had put him on the gurney to take him out to the ambulance, and the father figure showed up, and he got to see him before they took him. And I don't remember what kind of conversation I had with him, with the father figure. I don't remember. Like I said, it's just a huge kind of memory gap at that point. But after that, my mom had been trying to call me, and I could not talk to her at that time. And my brother, I asked him if he would go to mom and tell her what had happened, because I just could not do it. And he did. When I guess kind of got myself together or whatever, I went to my mom's house, and he had already told her, and she was just she asked me what happened, and all I could say is I don't know. And the only other things I even remember about being at my mom's house at that time was that I went and got one of Caleb's Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, I guess, stuffed animals or whatever. And I just remember holding it and laying on her couch for a long time. I have no idea how long. And after that, the next thing I can remember is going to my boyfriend's house, and we told his family everything that was going on. And I have no idea how many days passed from the time that Caleb died until that we went to plan the funeral. But I don't remember a lot of the details about planning the funeral. I remember what I knew what we wanted him to wear, and I remember some of those things. And I remember going to the graveside and picking out where he was going to be. And again, this state of shock. I don't even really know how long that it lasted. Um, but you know, uh, if we go back and we think at times about when we lost our loved ones, um, you know, there are some things maybe that we can't remember doing, and there are other things that we can. Um, this was just something that was completely unexpected. As I said, he was a month from turning 4 years old, so he was very young. Um, but I remember parts of the funeral, not all of it. I remember um, seeing him, and I can remember his clothes, and we had put many things in his little casket to take with him, and things of that nature. Um, Actually, a lot of times when I am trying to remember things, maybe to just kind of get a little bit of closure or something from that, I have to call my sister and ask her about some of the details of the funeral because I just can't remember. Um, I don't remember what his little face looked like in that casket. And maybe that is, maybe God doesn't want me to remember that. In my human nature as a mother, I guess I want to remember the last time I saw um, my baby, and I guess because I can remember what he looked like when I found him in his bed, but I can't remember what he looked like in that casket. Um, Sometimes I have like conflicting feelings about that because it's like the things I don't want to remember, I'm still remembering. And then when I'm trying to remember stuff, I can't remember them. Um, but I just do recall that during those first days and weeks and maybe even months, I don't know, um, there was just like huge gaps of time that went by, and I don't remember things, and I was just, that state of shock was still there for so long. And um and I guess, you know, the journey of grief, as I've said before, I don't think it ends until that we are reunited with our loved ones that we have lost. And it's a very hard road that's traveled. Um, but so the beginning is definitely hard. Um, I'm not one to say what would be the hardest part of the grief journey. I don't know if it's the beginning. I don't know if it's the middle. I don't know where it's at. But I do know that it's hard. And even almost 12 years in, I still have those very hard days when I am just um, questioning things, you know. And it's hard to accept it, regardless. But with Caleb, after he passed, he was young, so they done an autopsy on him, and um, I think about 5 weeks later. I'm sorry, 5 months later. Um, they called, and we were told in the beginning with that first call that they could not determine what had happened to him because, as I said, he wasn't sick, and even though he was autistic and had delayed speech, I mean, I would know when he was sick. But they said that, they were not going to be able to determine what had caused his death. And that was hard. I remember going to the cemetery that day, and it was hard. But one of the hardest things that it has been for me to accept on this journey is that the next day, less than 24 hours from that first call, we get a second call saying that the tissue had been re-examined and that he had bilateral pneumonia. And I personally have a hard time dealing with this because I have seen people with bilateral pneumonia, and he, to me, did not have those signs and symptoms, but that is what they put on his death certificate. It doesn't really bother me quite as much now as it did, but it does still bother me because I feel like I don't really have an answer. And sometimes there are those people out there that, because they don't understand, and maybe they've not lost someone that's very close to them, they will ask, well, why does it matter at this point? Well, it matters to me because I'm his mother. I'm the one that's supposed to protect him and take care of him. And I'm not getting an answer as to what happened to him. And he is just a very young child. So, the beginning of the grief journey is very hard. It's extremely hard. All the shock of everything that you're facing, you're realizing now, kind of, you go home and they're not there. Whoever it is in your life that you've lost, you go home and they're not there. And, you go to their room and you just break down and you just miss them so much. But I also want to say this, that I can look back at those days now and I know how hard it was for me. But I don't just completely melt down and have a breakdown when I do think about it. And there are times I still do that. But there for a while, every day I was just crying myself to sleep and, just not handling things well at all. Not handling life well at all. But the grief journey, the beginning, extremely rocky road. Extremely. Because we don't want to believe that this has happened to us. But it took me a long time to realize, though, that, and I'm a Christian, and I do believe that God has a plan, and He had a plan for Caleb, and that plan consisted of him being here for almost 4 years. It took me a long time to accept that. But again, I just want to say that, anyone out there, if this is the beginning of your grief journey, by all means, if you need somebody to talk to or anything, just find someone. I am more than happy to help anyone that I possibly can. Sometimes you don't even need to talk. Sometimes you just need somebody to hug you and just listen to you, or just give you whatever it is, whatever kind of support that you need. And you may have people that are trying to give you suggestions. And I did not always find that helpful, but because that they are ignorant, and I don't mean they're stupid, they literally don't know because they haven't been there, and they don't know what to say. So, but that is the story of how my grief journey began. And I'm going to try to be a little more diligent about getting on here and doing some videos. I've just been really busy lately. Um, but I do pray above all that someone out there will see this and they'll know that there are other people out there that understand. Um, you know, you're not alone. And you know, even if no one else is with you, God is always with you. That's just my personal belief. And I know that I would not be here today if it were not by the grace of God. Because He's the one who got me through the beginning of my grief journey. So, I appreciate everyone for watching. Thank you. And I will definitely be posting another video soon about how after that first initial shock and everything, you kind of move a little past that, how I was at that point. And you just know that we have to trust in the Lord that He's going to get us through it. So I appreciate you all for watching, and I thank you all so much. Until next time, see ya.